Okay, hey everybody, this is Daryl. I'm your host for Hope and Truth in a Crazy Mixed Up World. Today we're going to be looking at the theory of evolution. We're going all the way back to the beginning and we're going to just see where this takes us. It's a very complicated and kind of a crazy with different ideas and ideologies that go into this that it's going to be difficult to I'm not going to go in depth to explain it to you. Basically, I'm just going to hit some highlights and we're going to go from there and we're going to figure out where our hope and truth is in the theory of evolution. So let's begin by where it all began. We have what we call the Big Bang Theory, which after a lot of reading, I found out there was no explosion, there was no Big Bang, it was just an expansion. And this is how, and I got an article here, this is off of, I think this is off of the NASA webpage where they describe it, and I'm just going to read through it a little bit and I'll post this up for you guys so that you can read it too. So the Big Bang, what started the birth of the universe? According to physics, the universe sprang into existence from a singularity. Now, from what I'm reading, a singularity is almost like smaller than a pinpoint. And apparently this was in a black hole. So let me go on. A term physicists use to describe regions of space that defy the law of physics. They know very little about singularities, but it's known that such regions exist in the cores of black holes. It's region where all mass gobbled up by a black hole gets squeezed into a tiny point, infinitely massive, but also very, very small. Imagine cramming the whole Earth into something the size of a pinpoint. A singularity would be smaller. So this was like a really, really small thing according to science. Okay, so let's see, where was I at? Okay, that's not to say the universe began as a black hole. However, such assumptions would raise the question of something existing before the Big Bang, which is pretty speculative. By definition, nothing exists prior to the beginning, but the fact creates more questions than answers. For instance, if nothing existed prior to the Big Bang, what caused the singularity to be created in the first place? It's a gotcha question astrophysicists are still trying to understand. However, since the singularity was created, however it happened, physicists have a good idea of what occurred next. The universe was in a hot, dense state and began to expand through a process called inflation. It went from very small and very dense to very hot state. Then it cooled as it expanded. This process is now referred to as the Big Bang, a term first coined by Sir Fred Hoyle during a British Broadcasting Corporation radio broadcast in 1950. Although the term implies some kind of explosion, there really wasn't an outburst or bang. It was really the rapid expansion of space and time. Space and time, think of it like blowing up a balloon. As someone blows air, the exterior of the balloon expands outward. So basically, there was no Big Bang. It was basically, there was a small little tiny thing. We don't know how it got there or why it got there, but it was there. And this thing, somehow or another, decided it was going to expand. And as it expanded, it cooled and continued to expand some more, thus creating stars and universes and planets and so on and so forth. Now, as I was researching this, and I don't have, like I said, I don't have everything on here, but as I was researching this, Stephen Hawking said that there was the possibility that two black holes collided together, and this caused the singularity, and that's what caused the expansion of time and space. So, like I said, I don't know. I'm not a physicist. So, and here, so this Big Bang happens, this expansion of time, and, here's a picture of kind of their model of what it looks like, of the expansion and how much time. They say it took 13.8 billion years to expand to a point that we see today, I guess, and according to science, it is still expanding. Okay? So, and then thus, from all of that, we have our solar system that you see here. And that's what it comes about. So that's basically just a highlight of how all the universe began. And this is how it all came to be. Okay, so we go into the theory of evolution that was with Charles Darwin. We're not, like I said, we're not going to go too in depth, but so we look at this pic behind us, and what I have is a pic of, this is kind of more colorful look of evolution, like what we saw in school, which I'll show up in a second, that where we come from monkeys. But according to the National Geographic, all life originated from fish. Because fish, and the theory is behind it, is that fish are able to reproduce, lay eggs, and as the fish hatch, they're self-sustaining. They swim around. There's no, you know, mom doesn't have to sit there and hold it or give it a bottle or anything like we do today. But so fish were self-sustaining. And from that came other life. So, you know, it's kind of confusing. You know, I'm sure there was some fish that swam up close to shore. They saw land and they said, I want to be there. So, you know, maybe they evolved, or, you know, as we get into what Darwin says, there was DNA mutations. So maybe some of the fish mutated, you know, through birth and managed to grow some legs and were able to come out of the water and able to breathe, etc. And that's where it all began. Like, I don't know, I wasn't there. So let's look at this. Then we have this picture that we all saw in grade school that shows the evolution of man from chimpanzee or monkey or whatever type of animal it was up to man, and that we evolved. So we're going to look at the theory of evolution. As we look here, we have a picture of Charles Darwin. He was the contemporary, or he was famous for coming up with the theory of evolution. And we have a picture of him right here. There's Charles Darwin. And so basically what we're going to do is we're going to look at an article. Wrong article there. Let me get to the right one. There we go. There it is. And so this is going to be basically Darwin's theory of evolution in 5 easy points. I pulled this off the internet, and basically we're going to go through this and see what they say about evolution, okay? So the theory of evolution is one of the most widely accepted ways to explain all life on Earth. Its center is how biology directs the evolution of species to create diversity and change in the natural world. Okay, so the centerpiece of the theory of evolution is that of natural selection. Sorry, okay, I'm getting tongue-tied here. Natural Selection by Charles Darwin, and he wrote a book, The Origins of Species, published in 1859. Okay, so we're gonna take a look at his theories. So we're gonna take a look at this evolution, species, at a glance. So basically what it says, in short, Darwin's theory of evolution is the process of natural selection by which nature selects the fittest, best adapted organisms to reproduce, multiply, and survive. Or it's also called adaptation, where traits most likely to help an individual survive are labeled adaptive. As organisms change and new variants thrive, species emerge and evolve. All right, so basically only the strongest survive. That's basically what he's saying. Those that can overcome and do these things, and they overcome. That's the best way I know how to say it. Okay, so the 5 principles of the theory of evolution according to Darwin is the world is at a constant change, is what he says. So here it is. So when you look at a flock of birds at the park, you're seeing a tiny snapshot in time. A few moments later, they will have flown away. In 10 years, many have died and have had offspring. That, perhaps the birds change colors of their feathers in 100 years from now. That didn't come out sounding so good with my reading, but basically what he's saying is that we see like a sparrow. 10 years from now, that sparrow is going to be gone, but she laid eggs or whatever. And over a 100-year period, this bird may have changed color. Maybe the environment changed. Maybe some reason, like where I live, it's a desert type thing, so maybe they're more camouflaged and they've adapted. Maybe, I don't know. Okay, then it goes on to say the most basic aspect of the theory of evolution is that life is not stagnant. Nature, the environment, and everything that lives in it are in a fluid state of flux, which means change or a process. In Darwin's time, it was debated as to whether changes to a species could occur at all. Alongside others like Lamarck and Buffon, Darwin's work forwarded the idea that a species can change over time. You can observe the steady state, a bird in a park, but thousands of years before it could have been a bit different species altogether. So they're saying that what you see today might have been something else later on. Okay, so let's go here. Darwin wasn't the original person to suggest this idea. Many had suggested changes to species. Each of the other experts had different opinions on how it happened. They all agreed that a species has the inner ability to change and evolve. So that means that within us, even as humans, I guess, I'm not sure, we have the ability to change how we look, I guess, and evolve. So I guess if the polar caps definitely melt and the ocean rises, are we all going to die, or are we going to adapt? And how long will that take? I don't know. But we'll have to see. The origin of species represents an enormous shift in thinking in human history. So here we go. Okay, so the next one is the common ancestor. This is the second part of his 5 stages. If the world is in constant change, it has to have changed from something. Darwin needed to take a big leap in his thinking for his theory of evolution to take hold. Where did life come from? Good question. He deduced that all creatures on Earth should have come from one or a few sources. It went beyond Lamarck's idea that complex creatures evolved from simpler ones. Okay, so basically there was one guy that said that it all came from a simple single cell. Darwin decided that it could have came from one or a few sources. So that means we've had different little sources of cells or microbes or whatever it might have been, I don't know, that this came from. But we want to ask the question, where did all this come from? Where did it come? Now, when I was reading or I was watching videos with Stephen Hawking, he thought that microorganisms might not even have originated on the planet Earth, that through an asteroid flying through space might have crashed into Earth, so that his theory is that there could be life on other planets as well, and that it crashed into Earth, and then as it heated up, these microorganisms began to feed, and then there's where life developed. So I really don't know where all this comes from, and it doesn't seem like I can find anywhere where they have absolute proof of all of this. It's just a theory. So the theory is both accepted and controversial. Okay, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. So the theory is both accepted. You know, we hear about it in school. That's what they teach us in school. That's what they want us to know. And okay, on the one side, it is thought that life does not come from one or a few sources. A common ancestor has not, however, been identified as of yet. So they're still trying to determine who that common ancestor is for all of life. Okay, it is believed that simple versions of DNA or RNA-based viruses could be one of the main branches. I don't know. Hopefully it's not the COVID-19. However, socially, Darwin's theory brings up more contention. At the time, it was thought that humans were separate from the animal world. A privileged lineage would not come from the same source as all other creatures. This is according to Darwin. Today, it is not proven whether all life did evolve from one ancestor. Biologists today are still grappling whether the evolution of species comes from a single source. The idea is generally accepted. However, that life on Earth does come from one or few ancestors. So they don't know for sure if we came from one single cell, all of life, or if there was several what would they call it? Single cells, and life sprang from those different cells, or what happened? If we evolve, I don't know. It's like I said, this is very confusing to me, and it's not something that I really buy into. And I'm telling you right now, I don't really buy into this at all. But I'm just reading this out. So then we go to number 3, which is gradual change and species formation. The evolution of species argues a philosophy of science known as gradualism. It discusses whether changes on Earth happen quickly or on a slower, much longer scale. Darwin's push for a gradual change was against Lamarck's ideas that species-wide change could happen in a few generations. Gradual change has been both validated and shown to be inaccurate. One proof is the estimate of how old the Earth was. In Darwin's time, it was thought the planet was much younger. He contended that Earth had to be older, based on the many species of life. Later, a Scottish geologist proved him correct when he found the Earth is far older than geologists had estimated. Darwin's prediction was right on a geological scale. However, in a world of microbes, it has since shown that evolution of species can happen much faster. In bacteria and insects, single generation change is known to occur. In sexual species, mammals, and larger creatures, things are more gradual, but still do occur in sudden bursts. Two famous evolutionists, Stephen Gould and Richard Dawkins, debated on the points of punctuated equilibrium, which I don't know what that is, or gradual change due to DNA mutations. Gould's idea of punctuated equilibrium was seen more as a model of sudden burst of change. Punctuated equilibrium can be observed when environmental disasters bring large-scale change. Life and species need to adapt to harsh conditions, speeding the process of change up. Now, for me, I guess the change would be if all of a sudden clouds rolled in and all of a sudden the temperature dropped 20 degrees, my change would be I'm putting a jacket on. I'm not going to wear my shorts and t-shirt anymore. So maybe that's what they're talking about. I don't know. Okay. Punctuated equilibrium can be observed when okay, we read that. Evolution of species was said to happen slowly over vast spans of time. However, today is known to have faster component. That goes over my head. Okay, so number 4 is inheriting change across the species. Evolution of species has a big problem to explain how such massive diversity of life on Earth came to be. For example, let's think of giraffes with long necks. Lamarck described his explanation that giraffes living under a tree with leaves could grow long necks to reach the leaves. Darwin said that some are born with long necks that would spread through the population. Eventually, a new species with long necks evolved. Lamarck's idea was that each would have to undergo separate and eternal changes. So basically, I guess what they're saying is that there was an animal and he kept looking up. He said, I can't reach this and I can't climb the tree. Maybe it was like a hyena. I don't know. They kind of have that weird taller front legs and shorter back legs, I guess. So they basically, through their breeding process, developed DNA, I guess, is that what it said? Or somehow bred their way to the point that their necks grew longer and longer so they could feed because there wasn't enough food on the ground. I don't, like I said, I'm just guessing here. Okay. Darwin's theory says that within a population, changes occur as the balance of new inherited traits spread across the population. It differs from Lamarck's idea that each in the population must undergo the same change. Okay, how a new species comes about was something that Darwin struggled with his entire life. In his trip to the Galapagos, he found 3 new species of mockingbirds on different islands. each similar yet distinct species. Where Darwin could observe the process, he concluded geography had created new distinct species. I don't know. Or is it just, is one mockingbird the same as the other? Or we do have different subspecies of each species. I don't know. And like I said, later on we're going to take a look at this from a different point of view. Okay, species evolution is the distinct way that a new creature comes into to exist. Darwin's model showed that members of the same population were being selected due to individual characteristics. A species must first have variation, then environment to select. While widely accepted today, the exact mechanism of how a species evolves is still not wholly explained through genetics. The mechanism may lie in epigenetics and shift in DNA. So I guess if one bird flew from one island to the other, and the island was different from the other, and they had to adapt. I'm kind of trying to figure this out myself. They had to adapt. They changed themselves through their DNA to adapt to the new area that they were in. I'm trying to think of the word. I can't think of it right now. So there was a shift in the DNA, according to Darwin and others, that, if you brought the Gila lizard to Idaho and said, okay, here you go. This is your new home, and he put him out there, and he originally was a part of Mexico and Arizona and areas like that. Would he adapt from when it gets cold and snowy and icy? And would the Gila monster's DNA change where it grew fur? I don't know. I guess that's an experiment we'll have to try one day, huh? Now, also on his very fifth one is the evolution by natural selection. So Darwin says this: of his work, natural selection was the most unique of Darwin's ideas. It deals with the competition or struggles for life as the driver for success or extinction of a species. Other naturalists previously discussed these. Darwin took the idea a step further. He described the change within a species as for a giraffe with a longer neck, the advantage continues because it can reach more food. It is stronger, lives longer, produces more offspring. The children are born with long necks, and the cycle continues. The hard part I'm having is the getting there. How did it get there? Okay, natural selection relies on other points to be true. So that would start out with reproductive surplus. More offspring are created than needed. Discrete determinants of heredity. These are known to be genes held in DNA. So I guess their heredity determines the length of their neck. I don't know. Okay. Individual heritable differences. Okay, individual heritable differences. Now, understood to be genes passed by parents to offspring. Natural selection is now the most widely used way to describe adaptation. The evolution of species occurs with its intergenetic potential and the environment. There are two scenarios in life that differ. That is sexual selection of animal breeding. In nature, creatures are subject to the randomness of the process. Natural selection took a long time to be accepted. This is mainly due to its mechanical nature. It stripped any deterministic aspect of how species will evolve due to the fate of random chance. However, natural selection has two steps: chance of the surrounding world or the outside pressure, non-chance or intergenetic potential to produce a solution for the adaptation. Both of these factors work together to form natural selection. So I guess as the surrounding world presents itself and how genetically each creature develops to adapt to that Well, that area. So, like I said, I don't know. Anyways, it is this arm of Darwin's theory that biologists use to explain the harmony of adaptation. Species are flowing with the surroundings and the motion with their genetic code. It is also the arm of evolution that has stripped the purpose of life, more popularly used by neo-Darwinists who explain a machine-like nature to existence. So, for the conclusion, while being our best answer, evolution by natural selection is still a theory with arms to be researched. Darwin's theory of evolution remains the best model to explain the natural world. It can be broken into many aspects that need to be explained in its own right. Today we can look at the advantage of retrospect with a scientific process to confirm or direct further understanding. Okay? Each has both factual and philosophical discussions, of which some are open-ended. So basically, we can't go back and explain everything. We can't go back and say, here's where life began, here's the original microbe, or here's the original cell, or, you know, what is it, the lightning struck the rivers, you know, the primordial ooze, and life, you know, and we've heard of that too, that life all of a sudden became done, and here it is. So, we don't know. So, and then I'm going to go to this one here, because I find this kind of interesting, and I'm going to have a little drink of my coffee. Okay, that hits the spot. So, I found this. It was also a part of Darwin's theory, and I find it kind of entertaining. It was on the first edition of The Origin of Species that Darwin first wrote in 1859. Darwin speculated about how natural selection could cause a land mammal to turn into a whale. As a hypothetical example, Darwin used the North American black bears, which were known to catch insects by swimming in the water with their mouths open. And he basically states that he could see no difficulty in a race of bears being rendered by natural selection more aquatic in their structure and habits, with larger and larger mouths till a creature was produced as monstrous as a whale. This was his speculation, and it says he speculated. Okay? Now, the idea apparently didn't go over too well with the public, and Darwin was so embarrassed by the ridicule he received that the swimming bear passage was removed from later editions of his book. So then we go on to say, scientists now know that Darwin had the right idea but the wrong animal. Okay? Instead of looking at bears, he should have instead been looking at cows and hippopotamuses. Okay, so here I am. Okay, first of all, I can't see cows becoming whales. I don't know. You know, I'm not, like I said, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know. But cows looking like whales, well, or becoming whales, I would go more with the hippopotamus. Okay, you know, and I'm not sure how this worked. So I'm going to look at it this way. Okay, let's say there's this group of hippos, and you know, there's mom and dad hippo, and they have a baby, and this baby's DNA has somehow been mutated, and he looks a little different. And then that baby grows up, he gets a wife or a husband, whatever sex he may be, and the mutation produces further down the line another mutation and this hippopotamus starts becoming more aquatic, and all of a sudden, boom, you got a whale. Or, you know, there was a division within the hippopotamus clan, and one half said, no, we like being able to go in the water, but we also like to come out onto land and relax. And the other one said, no, we want to stay in the water the whole time. So we're going to stay in the water the whole time. And because of this, there was a genetic change, and so some of the hippopotamuses that wanted to stay in the water all the time kept getting closer and closer and closer to the ocean until eventually they grew so big and evolved into whales. like I don't know. Okay, so this is basically a look at the theory of evolution. And I know this is going to be a crazy video, so don't blame me on this. Okay, like I said, I'm not an expert, and really, after reading all the stuff and the research I did, I don't want to be an expert on it. But here's my question for you: that we're gonna look at this. If evolution is fact, my question is what do we look for as hope in our lives as humans today? What is our hope? I mean, think about it. We're going to live, we're going to die, and we just disappear. They're going to put us in a grave, and that's it. Nothing. We no longer exist. So our hope, is it going to be in how we live on earth for our short little time? Is it going to be our families? We have our families. We have our mother, father. We have our sons, our daughters, and our grandchildren. And is that our only hope, that we have a close-knit family and we all stay together and love each other? Is our hope going to be our position in life? Is it going to be our job? Is it going to be how much money we make? And I don't know. What is our hope? Are we hoping that we just live long? I hope to live to be 90 and live a full life, and that's my whole hope. Maybe one day I can become president or become famous or popular. I really don't know. And as far as truth, where did our truth come from? And I want you to think about this really hard. Where did our truth come from? Was it through our philosophers over the years that said this is good, this is bad, this is righteous, this is evil, and who determined this and who decided this is right? Like, say for instance, murder. One day some guy went out and killed another guy, and all of a sudden somebody's going, oh, this isn't good. So we have to set up a standard to show that this isn't good. So how did we do this? It's very hard. Or is truth from the leaders of our world? Did they come up with the truth that we have today? Is that our truth? Is it passed down from emperors and our first kings? Or where did our truth come from? And is that how we live today? Is our truth from these people? Are we depending on our presidents and politicians to be our truth and our guide throughout our lives? I hope not, because then we're in real trouble. Or where does it come from, and how did it get here? And this is the question I want to ask you, and I want to challenge you on. Where is our hope and truth? If this is what we base, if we're depending on science to give us the answers, and this is our answer, this is our hope, this is our truth, then, and there's still questions about it, we don't know what it is. And what is hope and truth? Or can we just change it from month to month? We're seeing that now in our politics today. What we used to say is not a good thing is now being made and created into a good thing. And we're saying, no, this is good. And we were wrong to say it was bad. So we're going to change it and now call this good. And now we're going to say, and if you think this way, it's bad. Like, I hate to do this because I don't want to be called a racist or anything else or hateful. But let's take a look at homosexuality. When we look at homosexuality, back when I was first growing up, it was not accepted. It was something wrong with it. And we look at it nowadays, and now we're saying, no, it is acceptable, and it's okay, and to think otherwise is wrong. So our laws have evolved over time as to what we find not acceptable and we find wrong. And we're going to get more into this later on in other videos, but now it's okay, and to think otherwise is wrong. So has that how it's worked throughout history, that we've adapted all our rules and thoughts and truths over time have changed? Or is there a solid standard of truths and we've just deviated from those truths? I don't know, well, I know in my mind, I know what I believe. But, and that's going to come in later on as well. But we have to think about these things. So I want to end with this, that my next video, we're going to look at the other side of the coin to evolution, and that's what is according to God's Word, the Bible, and how the world began and how life began. And we're going to take a look at that, and I'm going to challenge you to compare just basically what I've discussed here today, the theory of evolution, and then as I do my next video on creation, I want you to compare, and I want you to think about this. What do you want to believe, and what you want to accept as truth? Evolution or creation? So I want to thank you guys for joining in. By the way, if you like this video, please hit the like button and the share button. Let's get this spread out. Let's invite friends to, hey, view this video and see what they think. So click like, hit share, and I hope you enjoyed this. All right, that's it for today. So thank you very much for stopping by, and we will be seeing you again soon. All right, bye.